Hello and welcome to episode 4 of The Climb, the podcast in which we recap CBS's The Summit. Today we're going to recap episode 4 titled An Expected Storm. I'm Florian, joined by my co host, Kinley.
Hey, we're just the couple that loves to go on adventures and think that we could do this from our couch. Let's jump into it. There was a lot going on in this episode.
I know. So we start the episode with obviously flashbacks and a recap of the last episode and what happened before. But then we also have like a good minute, if not even more, of like what's going to happen in this episode. And I feel like they already like pretty much spoiled everything that's going to happen in the episode. Like that was pretty long.
I didn't like that. I did not like that at all. I was so confused because it felt like it was like, why am I watching the rest of the show? They kind of highlighted some like key points of like, oh, what the challenge is going to look like. It was like too much foreshadowing. And like you said, it was like a minute long, which I thought was odd. But yeah, I did think it was funny the comment that Patty made during like the cap part was, "What did I sign up for?" And I'm like curious like what their like description of the show was like when they like signed up.
That's a good question, especially being the first season, pretty much. I think there have been similar ones though, like in other parts of the world, similar shows. I think I'm pretty sure,
Hmm.
but I mean, yeah, probably not. I mean, I would imagine they would have to tell him pretty much in detail what's going to happen ish, because they would probably have to sign a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, we start the episode on day 5 after the votes. People are just walking around in camp. Um, we basically get a recap of the votes. Obviously, Jeff was voted out. We see Dennis coming clean to Dusty about lying at Tribal. Dusty obviously doesn't trust Dennis, but like Dennis felt like he had to come clean with at least Dusty to build some trust about lying. I think the lie he's referring to is when Manu asks at like basically the voting ceremony around the fire. Manu asks him directly, he or pretty much directly, I would say, if he was the one that threw out Jeff's name, and he said no, he didn't, which nobody believed anyways. I don't know what you thought about that.
Dennis is like not on my good side right now. Just like he did lie. I mean, he was the one that like really first was like, we have to get Jeff out. We have to get Jeff out. And then he's gonna sit there and then he tells Jeff to his face too, like, I would never put your name out there. I would never do that. And I get that that's part of like strategizing, but it's like at the point where it's like too much lying. I don't know. Yeah, I'm with Dusty on this one. Like he kind of like he feels that like Dennis is kind of off, that Dennis is like dangerous and like he can't trust him after that vote.
Yeah, for sure. We also see Becky and Theron trying to pull in Pumpkin. We see like a three-way conversation between them. It seems like a lie to me, or like they're not really trying to work with Pumpkin, just trying to get her as a number maybe, or not put a target on Becky and Theron too much, like themselves. But we also, what I thought was interesting in that conversation, we see Becky throwing out Rob's name, which kind of aligns with what we thought from the last episode, that there's going to be a target on Rob for being a floater.
Yeah, because I mean, Rob was really playing the floater. Like he was playing both sides really well. But then it comes back to how they vote. It exposes you. So once you pick a side, you kind of just have to roll with that. And even after the vote, he was like trying to recover from going with the majority. But I mean, he made the decision to go with the majority because he didn't want to stand out.
Yeah. So we skip forward through the night to day. Oh, no, no, no. One thing I want to talk about before we go to the morning of day 6. When Pumpkin, Theron, and Becky were talking, and then like there was like a weird situation where basically it was like the same thing when you say goodbye and then you walk the same direction, because they all were sleeping in the same tent, which I thought was really funny.
That was so funny. Yeah, they're like, oh, are we all going to the same?
But I guess it kind of speaks towards like the question we brought up on the last pot, which was like, I, I guess I guess they are split up in like 3 different camps, or like 2 or 3 different tents.
I don't know how they decide that. Like, if it's the same every single checkpoint, they stay in the same tent. Like, is that pre-decided, or is it like does it change like each time? And it's like based off of like it's like okay, I'm gonna sleep over here. Like everybody kind of just like bloop, like picks a tent or whatever.
Yeah, maybe the production predetermines it because they kind of didn't know. So maybe
Oh, that's true.
I'm confused. We skip forward to the morning of day 6 in camp. We see Nick coming out of the tent, and it's snowing heavily. So it's like it's basically a snowstorm, kind of almost a blizzard from a visibility standpoint, at least. Maybe not from the density of the snowfall, but visibility wise with the clouds and everything. Uh, Visibility is pretty much zero. I thought Nick was pretty funny. He said he's never seen snow, being from Louisiana. And yeah, basically the whole group is talking about how they can't really navigate with like this low visibility, and they're talking about hunkering down in camp. What did you think about like?
Yeah, waking up to a snowstorm and like it's funny because it's like who like Amy like coming out of the tent. They're like, what? Like they're like, oh my god! Like it's just like everybody like coming together and being like they're all. I think they all had the same thought of like, yeah, we can't we can barely navigate when it's clear out. How are we gonna navigate where we when we can't see? And I had this one. It was like Mother Nature has something else in store. That's for sure. But yeah, it kind of seems like Dusty seems to like lead the group like when they're around the fire and like actually making the decision to stay because Dusty kind of makes like the argument of like we can go and try to navigate, but it's like we won't be able to backtrack. Like you won't be able to see able to come back. Like say if they like started going and then they changed their minds, it's like how do you navigate even backtracking to the camp? So I mean, I think they made a good decision, but I think it was probably a hard decision considering like they are still behind on making it to the summit.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I'm curious how that works out. Like, let's say it's a snowstorm for like 7 days. Like, what does the production team do? Do they just will come back in 7 days, like pull everyone off the mountain, flying back onto that camp, and then continue from there?
if it was extreme weather, I think they would do something like that. But I don't think this was like extreme enough for them to pull them off the mountain.
Yeah, that's true. What I thought was interesting was that they're talking about the water and the food. Like they're talking about having to melt snow to get more water, and that they have like olives and tomatoes and stuff left. So I thought it was interesting that they also obviously didn't get any additional food for the day.
I guess because it comes back to like, oh, like you when you make it to a checkpoint, that's when you're rewarded.
Yeah, that makes sense. So they decide on basically staying at the camp for another day. We don't really see like the. I guess they all agree to like play it by ear and like see how the day turns out. But we just skip forward to basically the next day. At first, I was a little confused because we see somebody coming out of the tent, and but then they tell us it's obviously the next morning.
Well,
There were a
they
couple.
give us a little bit of like, okay, they're having a camp day because I mean that's then when like Amy is feeling alone after Jeff is gone. So, and like how like Pumpkin and Amy like were coming together, like talking about it, and how they were even talking about Rob showing he really showed his cards in that vote.
Yeah, that's true. We see a couple interesting conversations. I also thought it was interesting that Dennis says that Patty is his number one, and he really wants to like see people struggle, basically continuing on to put more of a target on them because he realizes he has a target on him. Um, we also see like I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that because you kind of hit on that one. Like Pumpkin straight up walks up to Rob and confronts him on why he flipped, basically, because obviously Pumpkin thought that Rob was in an alliance with him, with her and Jeff. But Rob basically says he flipped because Dusty wasn't feeling the connection to Jeff, which I thought was super weak excuse and kind of the downfall of Rob, I would say. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rob was just he was worried and was just trying to cover his tracks in any way that he possibly could. Because even at that point, he knew he had a target on his back. I think at first he was kind of surprised that he had a target on his back, which I kind of was too. But then like when they do like flashbacks and stuff of like, I'm like, yeah, I guess like I could see it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think he was just worried and like I don't blame Pumpkin for like confronting him
Yeah, I
because
mean,
I
I
mean
think it's
at
a
the
good move.
point of like in the position that she's in right now, it's not going to hurt her to confront somebody that's on the chopping block.
Yeah, that's true. It almost kind of took a target away from Pumpkin now that she's kind of alone without Jeff.
Yeah.
Nobody really cares as of right now. We continue in the morning of day 7. Pumpkin comes out of her tent. Amy comes out, says it looks a lot better, and eventually the group decides to start moving again. We get Manu, who tells us that they're leaving checkpoint 3, obviously, and they will face a 2,000 or nearly 2,000 feet downhill section into the valley below to basically reach checkpoint 4. Again, I don't think 2,000 feet is that much. I'm not gonna lie. It's really not. If you're hiking all day, it's really not that much.
No, I guess it's like they have like their packs, and then they also like they always encounter a challenge, and the challenge I swear takes
That's true,
forever.
and I guess it's not. They're not in a trail either. So as you already mentioned, they come up to a note, which is gonna mark the challenge of the day. They see a huge cliff, and they will have to partner up for to basically climb the cliff. There will be one leader and one follower. Right from the start, Jeannie's really worried like about being afraid of heights and really worried about this obstacle and really worried about finding a partner. What did you think about the whole dynamic of like them partnering up and everything there?
It's just so like you said, like she was just constantly like maybe that's how the producers, but like constantly making comments of like I need to be with somebody like who isn't afraid of heights. Like I need like worried that she wasn't gonna find anyone, and like it's like interesting how like she would make she was like asking almost everybody to be her partner, and as soon as like she would ask someone, they would be like, "Oh, I'm already partnered with da da da." Like whoever, and it's like and it's like they had just made that decision like when she asked, and it was like kind of felt like everybody was ignoring her.
Yeah, I think that's also the edit a lot of it, but it definitely gives you like the elementary school like picks in like PE class, you know what I mean? And there's always one
Yeah.
weird, like the odd one out, basically. But what is interesting is that obviously the group realizes they have an odd number again, so one member is going to be without a partner, basically. We see Nick and Amy partnering up. We see Dennis and Patty partnering up. We see Rob and Jenny partnering up, and then we see Pumpkin and Becky Lee partnering up. As we mentioned, Jeannie is struggling to find a partner. And specifically, she mentions Rob again. She mentions that she doesn't trust him anymore. And she thought they were like way closer than they actually were, which again goes into the Rob direction. Obviously, Dennis loves it because it kind of takes the target away from him.
Dennis, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think they knew nobody wanted to be the odd one out because, like, you don't know. I mean, as we see previously, like, you don't know if you're gonna actually make it through the challenge or if you're gonna be dropped
Yeah,
from the group. And especially since this is coming off of a day where they had to stay at camp like for a whole day and like that like took time off of their like allotted time to get up to the summit. Like I think just like tensions are high.
that's true. Yeah. What do you think about the challenge in general? In my opinion, it always like the shots were pretty cool with the like the cliff and stuff, but it always looked like one person was really struggling and one person was like just like going up no problem. I thought it was kind of funny to see. What did you think?
I
How
think it
hard was
like
this
comes
challenge?
I think we would have been fine doing it by ourselves. But then it comes back to like your physicality and how like athletic you are. And it kind of seems like the pairs were trying to balance that, like athleticism versus like it was like kind of I thought the pairs were all really balanced in a way. There definitely were people that could have done it like by themselves, but of course nobody wanted to be like oh, I'll do it by myself at the end. I'll be the lone one out because you don't know if that person is going to be potentially cut off from the group. So of course
Yeah,
everybody's just trying to partner up. And but yeah, I think there's a lot of people honestly on there that are afraid of heights.
yeah, like half of them
Like
almost.
vocally, like I am afraid of heights. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. Super cool shots and everything, and like I think it was cool to see some of like the leaders like helping out some of the other people like up the mountain as well. So that was cool. But I thought it was a cool challenge. I liked it.
Yeah,
It was different.
I agree. Um, we see Jenny and Rob's going up. Jenny's really struggling. Rob looks super comfortable. And Jenny basically throws a fit and says she's not going to move anymore. But Rob kind of talks her through it. They go up eventually. And I think Rob really collected some points for supporting Jenny here, at least for her. And we'll also see that later on in the vote, but we're going to get to that. And yeah, Jenny basically says she couldn't have made it up without Rob, which I thought was interesting.
Rob's like camp counselor teacher like side really came out in that challenge.
Yeah,
He did really well in talking her through like getting up because she was literally just like sitting there and was like, I'm not moving. Like I'm done. Which was crazy to hear from her considering like she's somebody who has conquered all these different challenges and like in life and like always like trying new things and like yeah, constantly just trying new things. And so it was really like interesting to me that like that is what like broke her. And so I mean what Rob did was it was really inspiring for Jenny. So
yeah. We continue with Dusty and Theron going up together. Uh, Dusty wants to build some confidence in Theron. Theron panics a lot. Dusty literally pulls him up by his backpack at one point, which I thought was a really funny shot. And then
yeah.
we get a Theron background story, which I thought was kind of crazy. Losing his first sibling early on in his life, his sister was killed by her boyfriend, and then in 2022, uh, his dad or mom,
Dad.
dad was
Dad.
murdered, which I thought was crazy. Just really sad, and I can't even imagine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I can't even imagine what it's like to go through that. And then he was talking about because we know this, like they're in such a positive person. We really haven't seen him like upset, other than when he's like fear of heights. Like that's when it's like he's down. But like other than
Yeah,
that, he's like a very positive person and like you wouldn't think that these tragedies have happened to him. And so it's like to show that like you it's what you make of it and what you make of life and he's really showing that through his positivity. But super cool. And I know like it was funny because like I think he maybe this was like later on in the show. um but yeah, it was. He was like, "Oh, I don't get this in California," and I was like, "Have you not been to Yosemite yet? Like, are
I
you
wrote that
like,
down.
there's
I wrote that down. I was like, that's ridiculous. You got to go outside back home
I know. I was like, Theron, please, like, we will meet up. We can meet up and go. We can go hiking in
and play board
Yosemite.
games in Yosemite.
That would be fantastic.
We'll take you up El
Please.
Cap.
No, we don't have to do anything crazy like that. We don't even have to camp out there. It could be like a day hike. But yeah, that cracked me up. I was like, there's so many because there are like some places in California that kind of looked like the terrain that they're hiking on.
I know. That's what I was thinking. I was like, you
So
literally have that in California.
yeah. Uh,
That was
anyways,
funny. But yeah, like you said, like really inspiring. He just wants to be basically somebody that people at home can look up to and just set a positive example. So with that, Theron and Dusty make it up, but they're already worried about Jeannie struggling like on her own, basically as the last person that has to go up, and basically taking a lot of time, which is always a concern for these challenges and reaching the next checkpoint. Next, Pumpkin and Becky are going up. Pumpkin is really struggling, but they eventually make it up. Dennis and Patty make it up. I thought it was interesting how basically the leader and the follower dynamics, like how the followers were so taken aback, like, or how it's changed their strategic outlook on the game, where they were like, oh, like my leader and this, they really pushed me up this mountain. I now am aligned with them. You know what I mean? I thought it was interesting because like two or three people said that, like Patty, Jenny, who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting somebody, but like two or three people said that, and I was like, it's a little too much. It's just a challenge. Like they're gonna backstab you the next chance they get.
No, I think that's like the game though. It's like a battle between like you're working together, like you have to work together to get up the mountain, but there's also this like strategic play as well of like we'll backstab you later, like kind of deal. And so yeah, I thought that was interesting too, but I think that was like in a moment kind of comment rather than like really thinking about gameplay comment.
That's true. But they, like, in their comments, they were referring it back to gameplay, so I was kind of confused. But you're probably right. It was just like in the moment after like making it up this challenge with a relief probably from not having to climb up a cliff anymore.
Yeah.
So pretty much the same dynamics between Nick and Amy. Amy's struggling. Nick helps her through it. She's super thankful, and they make it up. Um, and then we see Jeannie heading out or up, I guess. We
Wait, can
at the
we go
same
back
time
to Amy? Amy like asked Nick like before they like start climbing. She's like, "How many rocks have you climbed?" And Nick goes,
zero.
"0."
Yeah, that was funny.
Just funny like their dynamic because they're both like people coming from like backgrounds of like they've never seen snow. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, it's funny.
Well, I mean, to be honest, for like that kind of rock climbing, I haven't done too many of those myself. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because like this is like, I guess there was like a ladder ish in the rock face, like you could see it on some, like the steps in there, but still somewhat of a climbing experience, I would say. So as mentioned before, we see Jeannie heading up the rock face. At the same time, we see the mountain keeper's helicopter starting, taking off. We see a shot of Manu, obviously we have to when we're talking about the mountain keeper, and we're seeing basically the helicopter as we've seen before, coming close to Jeannie while she's climbing up. She's panicking a little bit, but it really doesn't have an effect on her because it's not like a ladder that swings around. She just holds on to the rock and she doesn't move basically. So I thought it was kind of a
Yeah, but she was like talking about like the which was what I was like concerned about before she made the comment of like the dust. Like the helicopter was stirring
oh
up dust though,
yeah,
because she
that's
had
true.
said that she was like, "Oh, there's like dust. I got dust in my eye."
I missed
But
that.
why is like the mountainkeeper always coming in like when they're like hanging on to like a rock face or like hang on? They're like, "Okay, now is the time. Now is the time." I think it's just the dramatic effect in the show of it, but if I was like the person there, like I would be freaking out too.
Yeah, that's true. But
Like the
yeah, I
helicopter's like
didn't
a
think.
little too close for comfort for me.
Yeah, that's true. You don't want to
And it
hit
may
one
just
and
be
get
like
it.
how they like make this shot and everything, but like it really looks like they're right there. Like one wrong move and
Yeah. I mean, I think they're far enough away. Honest, like you said, I think it's just a shot, like the camera angle. But still, you don't want to be close to those rotors.
but she makes it
So,
up. I was really proud of her. Because she's also afraid of heights and also maybe not as like the strongest person out there. And I mean that's the other thing about this challenge is like they also have their packs on. That's like an added like weight to also like pull up and pull yourself up with your pack on, especially if you're not used to those kind of movements and everything. But so yeah, yeah, I mean that she really had to talk herself through it as well. But it was, and she was like doing it for her kids and her family, but she did it.
yeah, that's true. So, as you mentioned, she makes it up, and the group can continue their trek. We see Dusty again mentioning Rob, so another person bringing up Rob's name. He says Rob's a little, like being a little condescending, and we get like a flashback, basically like a compilation of all the comments that Rob has made, like in camp counselor mode, from
Heroic
the
camp counselor.
yeah. That's it. What did you think? Like, I mean, I didn't. It didn't really show anything that we haven't seen. Like, yes, I understand the vibe that Rob gives, but yeah,
That's the thing. I mean, it was nothing new. Like we've seen all of those clips, and we know that Rob's personality is the heroic camp counselor. And Dusty's like concern was like, is it too fake? Is it too much? Is it playing too much? Like, obviously, he's maybe not showing, Rob's not showing all of his cards because he's hiding behind this personality, which I think is like Dusty's concern, that he's easily hiding what he probably actually means. And so, but yeah, I mean, I've seen, we've seen it how in the past, like Rob has gotten under people's skin a little bit of like, because he maybe is coming off as like that camp counselor vibe of like dealing with kids and stuff like that of like, oh, don't forget to wring out your socks, like watch out, like that kind of deal. And I think that's like getting under, that's what it seemed like to really get under Dusty's skin was the like, oh, he's treating us like kids.
yeah, that's true. I mean, I think it's interesting because like Dusty's main concern is usually when people are too slow, and now he's also like having concerns, I guess, the other way with like people who push people that are too slow in the sense of, I guess it's just his personality that rubs people, like Rob's personality that rubs people the wrong way, especially when they haven't eaten and stuff. It can be kind of annoying because nobody wants like basically their parents being out like I think Dusty says something about that they're not in fifth grade or like not like school kids or whatever.
And like you said, they've been out there for what, 7 days now, like together constantly. So you know, like it's like when it's like people's personalities are starting to build up, and you start to like the little things that they do start to get on people's nerves, or like it starts to bother people more than it
Yeah.
did possibly at the beginning. So like the wringing out of the socks on the first day, like, oh, like this is just Rob, like he's the camp counselor, like it was like fine, brush it off. But now it's like at the point where it's like this is annoying, like, or this is just like not how I want to be treated as an adult.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, I would be annoyed too, honestly. We see the group making it down to the valley floor, crossing a river, and this is where Theron drops his California line that you mentioned before, which I thought was funny because you have a lot of valleys and stuff in California with rivers running through them and mountains around. So
yeah, I know. Like I said, Theron, please reach out to us. We will work something out. We can go on a hike. You're still into the outdoors after this show.
yeah, we see Patty struggling again, holding up the group a little bit. She's really concerned about becoming a target for slowing down the group. But we also see Rob again, basically accompany, like he basically goes back to her. Is like, hey, can I go with you? Or like he's the only person that like stays back and doesn't let her walk alone. Because we also see her like literally face plant. Like that was a pretty hard fall. That looked
That
like it
was a
hurt.
big fall. Which
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, like, I guess she's been having problems with her knee. Which I didn't realize until she had said something, like, during the challenge. Somebody had said something about her knee, but then, like, I didn't really see it until, like, this, like, scene where she was, like, walking and kind of, like, holding that, like, leg almost. And I mean, knee pain's not fun at all. And so she really was struggling. She was pretty far behind the group, and she, like you said, she takes a big fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
She
did
gets
find
back
it
up though.
interesting how, yeah, she does. And like I I find it interesting because in the early stages of the show, like it felt like everybody was like waiting on the last person, like stopping and waiting. But here it didn't seem like they were doing that.
Yeah.
Like, was that because Rob went back? Like, what
Well,
were they gonna do?
I think the time concern becomes more. I think it's interesting because like, where's Amy? Is Amy not struggling anymore? She's fine now.
I think
I
it's just
guess
like a
so.
bigger gap because Patty is like struggling with her knee.
Yeah, that's true.
And how long are you gonna be able to last? Like,
It also shows you that Dennis doesn't really care about his number one. He just lets her, leaves her in the back.
goodness.
So the group makes it to the checkpoint 4. Patty and Rob come in a couple minutes later while everybody's already sitting at camp. And yeah,
Did you think it was funny when they were like Patty, and then like nobody was like raw, like yelled Rob's name? He's like raw.
yeah, that was funny. Uh, yeah, I thought that was
I'm like,
pretty
I think
funny.
that just showed like the energy of like how they wanted him gone.
That is true. Well, I mean, it could also just be in the moment where, like, they're in the back because of Patty, not because of Rob, you know? So she needs more positive reinforcement, maybe, than Rob. He's fine, you know,
Yeah,
with the
that's true.
physicality of it. So we see a confessional from Becky in camp where she talks about having made a master move or a mastermind move, voting out Jeff, and at the same time getting Amy on her side. Becky seems okay with Dennis as an option for tonight, um, as well as Amy. Amy seems fine with that too. Amy doesn't want to throw any names out tonight, and they talk about how Rob's name is already out. What did you think about Dennis and Rob as potential vote outs for tonight?
Dennis, I was fine with. He obviously can't really be trusted very much, considering he kind of like get it. He's just playing the game and trying to be strategic. But yeah, I don't know. He just like is too a whim for me. So I'm okay
Yeah,
with him. It seems like he's on like a lot of bad people's on people's bad side. But and then Rob, I guess like it just everybody. I think that's like a morale vote out because I think people are really just kind of like I said, like your bad traits of your personality start to like build up, and they've been together 24/7 for 7 days, so it's getting to people. So I think they're good options. Out of the two, I would have voted Dennis out.
yeah. I mean, me too. But we'll get to
Yeah.
that. First, we hear another helicopter come in. Again, the mountain's keeper is making an appearance. So the helicopter drops another yellow bag. Dennis runs up to it. We see Jeannie run, or kind of following him with with some distance in between them, which I thought was interesting. They bring back the bag to the bag to the group, and they open it together. The bag contains a letter for Jeannie specifically from the mountain's keeper, saying that they want to reward her for her bravery on the cliff, and she gets the power to decide who to vote out, basically. What that means or what that entails specifically is that she can pick between the leaders and the followers from the previous challenge where they climbed up the cliff. So, yet one group or the other. And basically, she picks one group that she wants to stick with. So let's say she wants to stick with the leaders. She will join them, and they will vote out or decide on voting out one of the followers, or vice versa. Obviously, stick with the followers and vote out one of the leaders. So it's basically up to her. What do you think? Who should she stick with, and who would you want to see out?
If it's between, I mean, Rob and Dennis are both were both a leader. So I mean, what she had said was like, oh, she'd be like stirring up the group if she went with the leaders to vote out somebody from the followers.
Yeah, that's true.
Really stir things up. But I would have gone with the followers.
Yeah, I think it's a smart move for her. She needs to keep up numbers on the lower skill level
Yeah.
side of the group too, because they kind of hide her too.
Yeah. Yeah, I did think that it was interesting how because I knew when they were picking leaders and followers and not just like pairing up, I was like, okay, this is going to come back later.
Yeah,
I don't know if they necessarily saw it as that. They're like, oh, it's just like somebody who goes first and somebody who goes last. I mean, there probably was some suspicion on it, but it didn't seem like when they picked the pairs that was like thought out with
yeah,
the potential of what the leader and follower could mean for everyone. But I thought that was cool to kind of incorporate that into this vote, so it's not like the same every episode.
I agree. I also thought it was only a matter of time until being the odd one out, like the last person to go up, or like in this case, go up alone, as in Jeannie's case, up the cliff, until they get an advantage out of it. like until it flips from
Yeah.
being cut off from the group to getting an advantage. It was only a matter of time.
Yeah,
But yeah, we see Manu come back into the camp, and we see him whistle like from like a little hill on the other side of camp. What did you think about the whistle?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
Like, was
was
he
like,
a
what is
bird
that?
flying in? Like, what's happening?
I had no idea. Why? Like to get their attention, yes, but like he also still has to walk into camp. Like he whistles and then he walks into camp. It's not like they're coming to him. You know what I mean?
He's trying.
I thought it was funny. He mentions that like probably the only way that Amy stops crying is if she makes it up the mountain. That was a funny moment, I think, between Manu and Amy. And then he turns to Jeannie basically, and they like talk about the experience of having to go up the mountain alone. Jeannie talks about feeling super alone because she's a team player and she didn't expect that nobody wanted to like partner up with her basically. And yeah, I mean, did you have any thoughts on the like the group discussion basically, or Manu's group discussion, or what you want to call it, before Jeannie makes her decision?
Oh, I mean, I think he was fine in this episode.
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't. We had worse ones. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. Like, it's not like he was, like, guiding her this time, like, or influencing which way she should
I
go.
agree. That's true. So Jeannie ends up picking the followers as we expected, I guess, because she feels closest to them, which makes sense. So now between those six people, they get to make the decision on who to vote out on the leader's side. So who's maybe we can walk through it real quick. So on the follower side, we have now obviously Jeannie, we have Theron, we have Amy, we have Patty, we have Jenny, and who am I missing? Am I missing anyone?
6?
Five or six.
Wait, name him again?
So we have Jeannie, we have Theron, we have Jenny, we have Amy, we have Patty. That's five. Who am I missing? Pumpkin. Pumpkin was in there. So we have them, and now basically they walk away from the fire, and they have a little group discussion in between them on who to vote out. Pumpkin says she doesn't trust Rob. Amy doesn't trust Rob either because of the last vote, obviously. They bring up Dennis as being a liar. Jenny specifically doubles down on this, says that Dennis is a liar and we can't trust him. We know he's a liar, she says specifically, and with Rob, he's kind of not a real liar, but like he's a floater in a sense, so not the best argument. What did you think about this whole group discussion?
Everybody kind of, like, came together and wanted to vote out Rob. But, I mean, I think there was still kind of some discussion because there were people in there that would have rather had Dennis out.
Well, I mean, Jenny was pretty locked on Dennis and obviously didn't vote for Rob,
Do you
which
think
I
that was
think also
because of
comes
the
back to the challenge.
challenge?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's true. Also, we see Patty protecting Dennis, which I think is also from the challenge and from them being close-ish, I guess, before. Anyways, she really doubles, like she really protects him, and like some like the elements of the conversation that we see, she's like doubling down on Rob. I thought it was
Yeah,
interesting.
I mean, it comes back, like, we don't see every conversation that happens between them. Like, it seems like they're closer than what I perceived them as being.
Yeah, that's true. So they basically return to like or around the campfire. The way Manu, I still think it's stupid how we do the votes, but the way Manu does it says like he basically calls the names of the people that are eligible for being voted out, obviously in an order that like leaves the two people that are likely to get voted out at the end. So we got him
I
calling
know,
out
it's not
Becky's.
like he, like, goes down the row
No, he picks
that
people
they're
because he knows.
sitting.
Yeah,
He knows, and I'm like, "Ugh, just
yeah, it's
can you find a
stupid.
different way of how to, like,
Write it
bring up
down,
the, like,
paper. So basically, he says Becky's name and like for the people on the follower side to raise their hand if they want Becky out. Nobody raises their hand. Becky is safe. Same thing for Dusty. Same thing for Nick. And then we come to the last two people, Dennis and Rob. And then he says, "Oh, you can plead your plead your case." So I'm like, "Oh, why didn't the other people get to plead their case?" I don't
I
understand.
know.
Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Um,
Yeah.
Nothing really too convincing in either of their pleats, I would say. Nothing that I even remember, to be honest.
Nothing that would have changed anybody's mind. I think their minds are
Yeah, that's
made up.
true.
It's almost like everybody should have said something before they went and discussed.
Yeah, for sure. So then Dennis' name, Manu calls Dennis' name. Uh, Jenny is the only one voting for Dennis. The rest, Amy, Pumpkin, Theron, and Patty, vote for Rob. With that, Rob is voted out, and yeah, he basically has to leave his money, leave camp, but he doesn't leave without a comment. Did you write down his comment? I think I have it somewhere. Oh, I have it. I have it. So Rob says some people are playing with their heart, and some people are playing with their head, basically. And it's not too late for the people playing with their heart
To
to
band
band
together.
together. I was like, what are you talking about?
I think he was trying to play on that. Like there are people that are being very deceiving and lying, and
Yeah.
that's not playing with your heart. Like he's saying that like there's a way to play with your heart where you're like compassionate and really care about everybody versus the people who are just trying to get a number and trying to.
But I think Rob would say of himself that he plays with his heart, but I think he plays more with his head than his heart, honestly. When it comes to votes, to what counts, I think he plays with his head and not with his
Yeah,
heart.
that's true. I could see that.
Any other comments before we get to next time on the summon?
You know what I'm like surprised about is like we still have people that are like struggling and like it doesn't seem as much of like a concern for the group of like you need to like get the people that are struggling out so that we can make it to the summit. It's really like the
Yeah.
past couple votes have really been like just strategic moves and they've all been like the more athletic people, which I just like I don't know. I expected that like every once in a while, but like it's like surprised that that concern hasn't come back up, especially when they had like a had to like stay at camp for a whole extra day.
I think it might, like, I was asking myself the same question. I think it might be that this segment between checkpoint 3 and 4 was a downhill segment and seemed pretty easy, seemed fairly short.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that, like, because it was downhill, people weren't struggling as much. Maybe we'll see more of it
Maybe.
again in further episodes when they have to, because they go over that ridge again. I
Yeah.
think we saw in previous episodes. All right. Since last time I just blindsided you with this, but this time obviously you're prepared. Who are your two winners or losers of this episode? You can pick one, the winners or the losers, and I will do the other ones.
I think Jeannie is one of the winners, obviously, because she climbed the ridge
Yeah.
by herself and then like really conquered like her fear of heights. Like she had a major fear of heights. Like she's telling everybody, like, I need to be partnered with somebody that's not afraid of heights. So like talk me through this. And
Yeah.
so I think she's the winner to be able to like she was able to like talk herself through it, make it up there. And then she got rewarded for that, like for her bravery, which really benefited her in the end. And then the loser, I mean Rob, I guess, like he
Yeah, you could say that.
I know that's like an obvious one, but yeah, I mean, I think it just like it really showed throughout the episode that people were starting to get annoyed by him.
Yeah, I agree. I also think it is interesting, and I'm not really sure who's going to be a loser out of that, but how the whole Becky, Nick, and like Becky, Nick, Dennis group seems to be splitting up. Like before, they were a lot closer. I feel like we haven't seen that in this
Yeah,
episode, so there might be something brewing there.
I think Becky Lee and Nick will stay
Yeah,
together.
Dennis already has a too big of a target on him. I feel like.
Yeah, I don't think they want to like stay with him because that kind of like then starts to put a target on them.
Yeah. So closing out the episode, we see the next time on the summit segment. We see a zip line. We see Patty climbing, throwing a rock, like a huge ass rock. We see them reaching the halfway mark, at least according to Manu, and we see a different kind of vote format, or at least a foreshadowing of a different kind of vote or twist coming up. Anything I missed?
That's all I could think of. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I just want them to stop, like, because they did it like halfway through this episode too, like of like the foreshadowing of the current episode that we're watching.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I know we
know that's a
talked about
lot.
that at the beginning, but then they did it again, like in the middle of the episode too. And it's like, you want us to watch the show all the way. Like, why are you showing us like what we're
Yeah,
gonna get to? Or like some of like the funny, like I think they're trying to like draw people in, but I'm like, stop, now you're like showing all the good parts. Like
I know. I
um,
know. Yeah, but I thought overall it was a pretty good episode. Not the best one. I think the last one was a little better. I liked the challenge though. I thought the climbing part was kind of cool. And
I agree.
any last thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Last episode was has probably been my favorite one so far. This one was like it was good. It was like the whole foreshadowing thing, like or like the whole like them showing us what was gonna happen, basically. Like I was like, this is so odd. Like they didn't have this on the last episode.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just looking forward to them getting into the snow too. Honestly, once they get
Yeah.
at higher to a higher altitude, and the Alpine Lake crossing is coming up too. A
Yeah.
couple episodes, I think. Yeah. With that, we're at the end of the episode. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.